So our first steps to our oil change, as with any vehicle, we're going to be pulling our oil filter cap, and I'm going to be dropping that into a pan to inspect for any particulate matter. This car gets pretty hard miles. I've got the special tool here. It's just a 36mm socket, but I'll drop links down to these down below. We're just going to break it free, and because my oil filter housing has good mounts on it, it doesn't move away from the body there. So the oil looks really good after a year's use. I'm going to attribute that to the Ceratec. I don't know that it works or doesn't work, right? Because the only way you would know is through chemical analysis. However, a year's worth of pushing a lot of fuel and a lot of load through this thing, and it always looks good. I put a bottle of this in with every oil change, even though there's no chance I'm ever going to see 30,000 miles on the oil. I see 500 miles, 200 miles, maybe. Even our oil filter still looks remarkably good. Let's get this over here. We're going to look for those telltale sparkles that can be a concern for bearings on an S62. All right, we're going to take our 17 out. So we're going to get the pan drained, and then we're actually going to take the lower oil pan off, because at 168 relatively hard miles, or 168,000 hard miles, at least here at the end, I'd like to see if I have any timing guide or anything sitting in the bottom of the pan. Now, there is some magnet debris there. This could be a sign that I might need to look at the bearings. Who would be excited to watch me replace the bearings on this S62? Let me know down in the comments if that's something you'd like to see. This doesn't look like bearing to me, but we'll see what's going on inside the pan. So before we pull our oil pan or our lower oil pan off, something that's really important to note, that DJI is turning off. We'll wait for that, hold on. And we're back. The really important thing to note is we have 3 bolt sizes. We have the standard bolts, which, there are a ton of, and then in this corner, there are 4 55mm bolts and 3 50mm bolts. Really close in size, but it's important that we don't mix these up. I marked on the pan where they go. I'm also going to mark the bolts, which would be a good idea, just so that I don't make any mistakes when they're in a pile. I'll also separate them, so I'm just going to mark a 1 on each one of these and 2 lines on each of these. Break everything free, then I'll come back and zip them off. That way I know that none of them are stripped or in there sideways or anything else weird that could possibly happen here. Well, I might like it. Ooh, 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 that's hot, that's hot. All right, let's see what kind of magic we got going on in here. There is absolutely no debris down here. I'm pretty excited about that. All right, well, we've got this thing draining. May as well continue exploring. I'm gonna pop the oil strainer off. Let's see, turn it the right direction. Those aren't very tight. Then we'll inspect inside, see if there's any debris hiding in there. Woo! Ha ha! That was exciting. Everything is slippery. Here's the strainer. That's the O-ring. There's an O-ring here as well to get this plastic cover off. Well, my filming buddy is out fishing with Grandpa and Grandma today, so you guys are back on the tripod. Last night, the camera died before I got the pickup screen cover off. And really all I had to do was pry it past the seal here. It took a little bit of grabbing here on this little nub, but it did eventually come off. Now inside was pretty clean, absent a couple little pieces of debris. This is brake clean and debris here, and I'll go ahead and sift that out for you here now. Hey, what do you know? Another salsa container. These clear containers make fantastic shop containers with lids, and I love these things for the fact that they come with the salsa and you get to eat the salsa. So as most of this stuff was coming out of the strainer, what I was noticing was 90% of this is silicone. I'm guessing from the valve covers, it's kind of soft and gooey. There are only 2 noticeable pieces of plastic out of all of this. Yeah, these 2 little clips. So let me bring you in closer here. Okay, so all of this is silicone. It's easy to tell. It bends, it flexes. This little piece here, that's plastic. It's black plastic, and it's rigid. I can't just break it with my fingers. This looks like it's, whoop, now it's on the floor. A mirror image of this other piece, little clip. Not entirely sure where those came from. They probably came from some sort of retainer on the guides, but honestly, that's not enough for me to worry about. Not at this point. Especially with the rest of that being plastic. I've seen plenty of people drop their pans and have big chunks of guide and all sorts of things down in the pan and in the strainer. So I'm not terribly worried that my guides are shot. I don't have any records of the guides being done on this car. I bought it in 2017, it's now 2024, with 162,000 miles on it. It now has 168,000 miles on it. And the last, I don't know, say 2,500 of that have been all track use. So I'm not worried about this. It's not falling apart. It doesn't make any noise. The Vanos is dead silent. And I don't have, again, any chain noise or anything from it. I was just pulling this off because at this mileage, I wanted to double check that I didn't have anything catastrophic in the pan, so to speak. Which we're gonna get to the pan here in just a second. Okay, here's the pan exactly as I dropped it off of the car. I haven't done anything with it except rub my fingers up in here and see that there's a bit of sludge debris. This has the same color palette as the oil that came out with that kind of creamy texture. No metal though. My magnet was clean. Everything in here is clean. There's no large debris anywhere. And as I'm looking at it, there is absolutely zero reflective sparkle in here, even on my finger. There's nothing. So I really don't think I have a bearing issue. What I think is I have really, really clean oil with this Ceratec milk product, muscle milk for your engine. And this is what it looks like when you change it without putting any real mileage on it. So I'm gonna dump this out, clean it, and I think we gotta get this thing put back together. Our oil strainer, all I had to do was put a little bit of oil around the O-ring and push it back together. A little bit of oil around this O-ring. Then we're gonna go up and in. So try to gently rock this in as to not cut your O-ring. Now obviously if it were easy enough to replace these O-rings, I would, but from my understanding, they are not available separately. Okay. All right, we've got our new gasket. Remember we have 3 size bolts. The gasket only goes on one direction. You can't get this backwards, I don't think. I mean, it's an awkward shape. It'd be really difficult to get that backwards. And it torques to 10 Newton meters. 50 millimeter bolts. There are 3 of. That's the 3 back here at the back of the pan. And then these 4 on the side and kind of in the middle by the drain plug. Those are the 55mm bolts. Again, don't put these in the wrong hole. Don't forget to change your O-ring on your oil filter and make sure that your filter housing itself is still intact to be able to accept a filter and not fall out. Now, I did put oil in my filter housing so that the filter itself will start to absorb oil. And we're using a funnel because I don't like cleaning up messes. So the Ceratec says to shake it up. I think this is what is in my oil. Before I wind up publishing this video, I'm going to get a hold of Liqui Moly and I'm going to ask them if what I'm seeing is from this or otherwise. And then watch closely. The stuff comes out like a milkshake. An oil milkshake. And then what I like to do is put oil in here to get the remainder out as well as I can. See? Milkshake. This is why I use a funnel. Oil's full. Let's fire it up. Like I said, except for the beauty of the exhaust, this thing makes no noise. Doesn't shake, doesn't rumble, doesn't anything. Just sounds like European bliss. We'll let that warm up and then we'll double check the oil and do those things. So I've been letting the oil warm up so that I could check it, and it's wicked creamy already. I don't know if you can see it on the cap there. I'm 98% sure that this is entirely the Ceratec, not something else going on in my oil. I do actually feel a lot better now that I see that, because I have absolutely zero coolant mixture going on. I mean, my coolant is fresh as can be in here. I'm very much happy with that. Yeah, it's got to be the Ceratec. Whew. I feel much better. Not that I'm not going to still confirm it. Okay, so what is all of this talk about creamy oil? Well, if you've made it this far in the video, you get to hear about my Blackstone report. Before I get to the Blackstone report, let me actually show you what had me all up in arms with this oil change. Up on screen here, you can see as I was draining the oil, I had a lot of what appeared to be a creamy substrate or potentially bearings in my oil. That had me pretty freaked out. The first thing I thought was maybe it's the milkshake that I'm pouring into the engine, so I reached out to Liqui Moly. Honestly, they weren't all that helpful. They said Ceratec contains, among other ingredients, ceramic particles. These particles have a whitish color which make the product look milky and may change the appearance of the engine oil somewhat. However, the discoloration seen in your video is too strong, which is very unlikely to be caused by proper use of Ceratec, with the dosage specified. We recommend cleaning the engine with Proline Engine Flush before the next oil change. So basically they just want to sell me engine oil flush. So they agree that the white could be from the Ceratec, but not that much white. Okay. So then I sent off my oil to Blackstone. Unfortunately, I wasn't thinking I was going to be sending off my oil, and I drained into not a specifically clean container. It was pretty clean, but I had previously used it for working on my X5 and doing a coolant flush, so there was some coolant residue in there. From Blackstone. I'll put the measurements here on screen so you have those as well. Thanks for the note. I sent them a pretty lengthy note about what I was experiencing, the information about the car being a track car, and usage. I said I had about 350 miles on this oil. Universal averages show typical wear for a BMW S62 engine with about 4,600 miles on the oil. That kind of speaks to how hard I'm using the car. Wear metals in the sample could be considered high on a per mile basis, but that could be normal for a track car. The metals are well balanced and low at face value, so the bearings, see copper, lead, and tin, and other mechanical parts seem fine. Silicon is a bit high, but it could be dirt or dust from the sampling conditions. The dirty container. The slightly thin viscosity isn't a big deal either, and the TBN is very strong. They suggest about 500 track miles for my next oil change. Now the TBN is the total base number, which is what they use to determine how new the oil is. It should be about a 6 to 7 with brand new oil. Mine registered as a 6. Every other measurement on here was well within range, except the silicon. Now silicon could be from a additive in coolant. It could be from the Ceratec additive. I can't find an MSDS that shows what exactly is in there. But they also say that they don't see any antifreeze or any water in my sample, which really takes away the idea that it's from coolant. These engines are known to have a problem with the oil cooler in the valley of the engine, but I really don't think that that's what's happening here. I'm not losing coolant, and I'm not seeing any oil in my coolant, which I would imagine there might be transfer. So where does that leave me? Well, since I started filming this episode, or this video, I bought 2 more broken BMWs that I'm currently focusing on. I sold my truck, sold my race trailer, and my life kind of flipped upside down a little. So here the race car sits until there's funds to devote to playing with it otherwise. I appreciate you watching, making it this far, dealing with my ramblings about the Blackstone analysis. I do really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe. If you want more information on the Blackstone report and how these work, reach out to Blackstone. These guys have been great to work with, lots of information, and I'm really pleased with how this came together. Really, I don't need a motor. That's probably the most beneficial part. Either way, I'll see you in the next one.